But you mistake our preference for peace as an inability to wage war. She continued, her voice carrying a subtle warning that made Elder Alphen's crystalline form pulse with alarm. Every human child learns about the wars that nearly destroyed our homeworld. We remember the weapons that could turn continents to glass, the biological agents that could end all life on a planet, the artificial intelligences that could calculate the most efficient methods of species extinction. The chamber began to stir with unease as some of the more perceptive species recognized the implications of her words. War Commander Voshtal, however, remained dismissive. "Ancient history," he rumbled. "Your primitive wars are irrelevant to modern galactic conflict. The Dominion Alliance commands battle fleets that dwarf anything your colonies could field. We have conquered species with far greater military traditions than humanity." Dr. Chen stepped forward, his datapad displaying tactical analyses that made several military observers lean forward with interest. "War Commander, you have attacked civilian targets because you assumed they were defenseless, but you have never attempted to assault a human military installation. Why do you think that is?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Several species began accessing their own intelligence databases, suddenly realizing that the Dominion's campaign had indeed avoided any direct confrontation with human military forces. "We chose to target infrastructure first," Voshtal replied, but his voice lacked its previous confidence. "Standard military doctrine calls for weakening enemy supply lines before engaging primary defensive positions." "No," Ambassador Baskers said quietly. "You targeted civilians because your intelligence indicated they would be easy prey. But you have avoided our military bases because deep down, some part of your strategic mind recognizes a threat it does not fully understand." She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed star charts marking the location of destroyed human installations. A clear pattern emerged, showing how Dominion forces had carefully avoided several key systems while striking at isolated research stations and agricultural worlds. Elder Alphen's form began pulsing with urgent patterns as ancient memories surfaced in his consciousness. He remembered stories from his youth, warnings passed down through generations of his people about a species that had once been underestimated by aggressive neighbors. The details were hazy after so many millennia, but the outcome had been absolute. "Ambassador Vasquez," the elder interrupted, his crystalline voice resonating with newfound urgency. "Your species has records of previous conflicts with galactic civilizations. What became of those who chose warfare over diplomacy when dealing with humanity?" The question caught many council members off guard. Few species maintained accurate historical records spanning more than a few thousand years. But humanity was known for their meticulous documentation of past events. "The Krillian Empire encountered us approximately 400 years ago," Vasquez replied matter-of-factly. "They demanded that human colonies surrender 70% of their territory and accept tributary status. When we refused, they declared war and began systematic attacks on our outer settlements." She paused, letting the parallel to their current situation become clear to every observer in the chamber. "Where is the Krillian Empire today?" Elder Alphen asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "The surviving members of that species live peacefully on their homeworld and to nearby systems," Dr. Chen answered. "They are valuable contributors to galactic civilization and have been trusted allies of humanity for over 3 centuries. War Commander Voshtal's scales began to darken with anger. "You speak in riddles and half-truths. If you had defeated this Krillian Empire, why have we heard nothing of human military might? Why do you not dominate this sector of space if you possess such capabilities. Ambassador Vasquez moved to the center of the chamber, her presence commanding attention from every representative present. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty, because we learned that true strength lies not in domination, but in restraint. We do not seek to rule over other species because we have seen what such ambitions cost. We do not display our weapons because we hope never to use them again. We do not boast of our military capabilities because we remember what they can do. The chamber fell completely silent as the implications of her words settled over the assembled delegates. Even War Commander Voshtel seemed to sense that he was missing crucial information. But you have pushed us beyond the point where restraint remains possible, Vasquez continued. You have murdered our children, destroyed our homes, and ignored every attempt at peaceful resolution. You have interpreted our desire for diplomacy as evidence of weakness. You have made the same mistake that cost the Krillian Empire everything they had built over 10,000 years of expansion. High Chancellor Krexter leaned forward in his ceremonial chair, his compound eyes focusing intently on the human ambassador. What exactly are you saying, Ambassador Vasquez? I am saying that humanity withdraws from these diplomatic proceedings. We have fulfilled our obligations to galactic law by seeking peaceful resolution through proper channels. We have presented evidence of war crimes and requested Council intervention. Since the Council chooses to interpret these attacks as legitimate territorial expansion, we will respond accordingly. The chamber erupted in confusion as delegates from dozens of species began rapid communications with their homeworlds. The Dominion Alliance representatives laughed among themselves. Interpreting the human withdrawal as surrender, War Commander Voshtal stepped forward triumphantly. So the weak humans finally accept reality. You cannot stop the Dominion's expansion through words and protests. We will continue claiming your worlds until your entire species accepts proper subjugation. Dr. Chen gathered his datapads while speaking in a voice that carried to every corner of the chamber. War Commander, you have spent months studying our colonial worlds and civilian populations. Tell me, how much research have you conducted into human military capabilities? The question seemed so absurd that Voshtal laughed again. Why would we study the military capabilities of a species that has never demonstrated any? Your colonies are defended by patrol ships barely capable of handling pirates. Your military bases are minimal installations focused on exploration rather than combat. Then you have learned nothing from galactic history, Elder Olthan said, his crystalline form now pulsing with patterns of deep concern. Wise civilizations study their potential adversaries before choosing warfare. You have observed only what humanity wanted you to see. Ambassador Vasquez moved toward the chamber exit, her delegation following behind her. As she reached the doorway, she turned back to face the assembled council one final time. War Commander Voshtal, members of the Dominion Alliance, you will discover that humanity's greatest weapon has never been our technology or our strategic thinking. Our greatest weapon is our ability to remember exactly what we are capable of when you force us to abandon restraint. The massive doors sealed behind. The human delegation leaving the council chamber buzzing with speculation and growing unease. Elder Olthan accessed his people's most ancient databases, searching for the fragmentary records that had triggered his recognition. What he found made his crystalline structure dim with horror. War Commander Voshtal, however, remained confident in his species' superiority. Within hours, he had transmitted orders to Dominion fleets throughout human space. The final phase of conquest would begin immediately, targeting the human homeworld itself. He had no way of knowing that deep in the hidden sectors of human-controlled space, systems that had remained dormant for 2 centuries were suddenly coming online. Ancient protocols were being activated. Weapons that had been designed to end wars in minutes rather than years were being prepared for deployment. Humanity's age of restraint was ending, and the galaxy was about to remember why some species choose diplomacy not from weakness, but from terrible knowledge of what they become when diplomacy fails. Asterisk. The awakening of humanity's Wrath Fleet. Admiral Sarah Rodriguez stood in the command center of the dreadnought Retribution, watching as tactical displays showed Dominion fleets moving toward human space with confident aggression. The massive vessel floated in the void between star systems, its hull black as space itself and invisible to conventional sensors. Around her, dozens of similar ships maintained their silent vigil, waiting for the activation codes that would unleash centuries of hidden preparation. The Admiral's weathered face showed no emotion as communication streams flowed across her screens. Ambassador Vasquez's diplomatic withdrawal had triggered Protocol Omega, the contingency plan that humanity had hoped would never be necessary. Every human military commander throughout the galaxy now understood that restraint was no longer an option. Admiral called Captain Rex Morrison from his station at the tactical display. We're receiving final confirmation from all strike groups. Project Nemesis assets are fully operational and awaiting your orders. Rodriguez nodded grimly. Captain, Morrison commanded the most elite special operations units in human space. Teams that had been training for scenarios exactly like this one for decades. His weathered features and cybernetic eye implants spoke of battles fought in the shadows, conflicts that had never appeared in official records. Dr. Angela Foster emerged from the ship's advanced research laboratory, her usually pristine white coat stained with the evidence of frantic, last-minute preparations. As chief scientist of humanity's most classified weapons program, she carried the burden of knowing exactly what they were about to unleash upon the galaxy. The quantum disruption fields are synchronized across all target zones, she reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was describing. Dominion military installations will experience simultaneous system failures the moment we initiate the cascade. Their fleets will be effectively blind and helpless within 90 seconds of activation. The bridge fell silent as the implications of her words settled over the crew. Technology that the galaxy believed to be theoretical had been perfected by human scientists working in complete secrecy. Weapons systems that violated several galactic treaties were now ready for deployment against an enemy that had never bothered to consider their existence. General David Park's face appeared on the main communication screen, transmitting from Earth's deeply buried strategic command center. His gray hair and lined features spoke of a career spent preparing for conflicts he had hoped would never come. Behind him, screens showed global military readiness levels that would have shocked any alien observer. Sarah, he said without preamble, the Dominion Vanguard fleet has entered the Sol system. They're broadcasting surrender demands to Earth's civilian government while positioning for orbital bombardment. Intelligence suggests they plan to use our homeworld as an example to terrify our remaining colonies into submission. Admiral Rodriguez felt cold fury settle in her chest. The Dominion had made the fatal mistake of threatening humanity's birthworld, the planet that held 8 billion souls and represented the heart of human civilization. They had crossed the line from territorial aggression to attempted genocide. Long until their main battle group achieves attack position, she asked. 14 hours, Park replied. They're taking their time, probably hoping to maximize the psychological impact of their approach. They want our people to see death coming and have time to contemplate surrender. Dr. Foster moved to her private workstation and began entering authorization codes that unlocked humanity's most carefully guarded secrets. Admiral, the collective consciousness is requesting permission to begin intelligence operations. Our AI network has identified vulnerabilities in Dominion communication systems that could provide significant tactical advantages. The mention of the collective sent subtle chills through even the hardened bridge crew. Humanity's artificial intelligence network had evolved far beyond anything the galaxy suspected, becoming a parallel consciousness that existed in the quantum spaces between computer systems. It had been content to assist with research and logistics for decades, but now it was eager to demonstrate capabilities that could reshape the balance of galactic power. Permission granted, Rodriguez said without hesitation. Begin full-spectrum operations. Across human space, the awakening began. On the outer rim world of New Geneva, Dominion scouts detected massive energy signatures appearing throughout the system. What they initially assumed to be human evacuation efforts quickly revealed themselves as something far more threatening. Stealth ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields and nebula clouds suddenly activated their weapons systems, emerging from concealment like predators that had finished stalking their prey. War Commander Voshtil received the first confused reports aboard his flagship as it approached the human homeworld. His tactical officers struggled to interpret sensor data that defied their understanding of human capabilities. My lord, his communications officer reported with growing panic. We're losing contact with our forward reconnaissance groups. 17 scouting flotillas have gone silent in the past 30 minutes. Voshtil's scales rippled with annoyance. Communications interference. The humans are probably using some form of electronic jamming to delay our intelligence gathering. Continue the advance. But the reality was far more disturbing than simple jamming. Captain Morrison's special operations teams had been infiltrating Dominion installations for months, moving through alien space like ghosts and positioning themselves for this exact moment. When Protocol Omega activated, they struck with surgical precision that left enemy forces paralyzed and confused. The first major engagement occurred in the Kepler system, where Dominion forces had established a forward staging base after destroying the human research station. Admiral Chenway, commanding the Human Response Fleet, emerged from hyperspace with forces that shouldn't have existed according to Dominion intelligence. The human battle group consisted of ships that blended technologies from across the galaxy, incorporating innovations that had never been shared with alien civilizations. Plasma cannons that could punch through any known shielding system, defensive barriers that bent space-time itself to redirect incoming fire, fighter craft that moved with impossible agility thanks to inertial dampening systems decades ahead of anything in galactic databases. But the most shocking revelation came when the Dominion fleet attempted to withdraw. Their ships simply stopped responding to helm controls as the collective consciousness infiltrated their computer systems and began rewriting fundamental operational codes. Engines shut down, weapons systems locked onto their own allies, and life support began cycling through failure modes that triggered emergency protocols. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Admiral Chun's voice echoed through Dominion communication channels. Your crews will be treated according to galactic conventions regarding prisoners of war. Your ships and equipment will be confiscated as restitution for war crimes committed against civilian populations. The Dominion commander, a reptilian officer, named Subcommander Krexvolume, found himself faced with an impossible situation. His fleet of 37 warships had been rendered helpless by an enemy force of only 12 human vessels. His tactical computers insisted this was impossible, but the evidence surrounding his disabled fleet suggested otherwise. "How?" he transmitted back, his voice carrying genuine confusion rather than military bravado. "Our intelligence indicated that humans possessed minimal military capabilities. Your colonies were defended by patrol craft barely suitable for police work." Admiral Chen's response revealed the depth of humanity's strategic deception. "Subcommander, every patrol craft you observed contained sensor arrays more sophisticated than your flagship's tactical systems. Every research station you destroyed was monitoring your fleet movements and transmitting data to our strategic command. You have been fighting shadows while our real military remained hidden." Similar scenes played out across dozens of star systems as humanity revealed capabilities that rewrote galactic understanding of technological development. The Dominion Alliance had based their invasion plans on deliberately misleading intelligence, walking into a trap that had been centuries in the making. Back aboard the Retribution, Admiral Rodriguez watched tactical displays that showed the systematic dismantlement of Dominion military power. Her strategy had been simple in concept but devastating in execution. Rather than engaging in prolonged campaigns that would cost lives on both sides, humanity struck everywhere at once with overwhelming technological superiority. "Status report from all theaters," she requested. Captain Morrison consulted his command displays before responding. Phase 1 objectives achieved across the board. Dominion forward bases neutralized with minimal casualties. Enemy fleet elements either destroyed or captured depending on their willingness to surrender. Our stealth operations teams report successful infiltration of primary Dominion worlds. Dr. Foster looked up from her quantum analysis screens. "Admiral, the collective has established complete dominance over Dominion information networks. They can now monitor all enemy communications, track fleet movements in real time, and disable critical systems on command. The enemy's technological infrastructure is effectively under our control." But the most crucial engagement was still developing in the Sol system, where War Commander Voshdel's main battle fleet approached Earth with confidence born of complete ignorance regarding their true situation. "General Park," Rodriguez addressed the image on her communication screen. "Are you ready to demonstrate Project Nemesis to our uninvited guests?" The general's grim smile spoke of anticipation mixed with regret. "The lunar installations are fully charged and targeting solutions locked. We can disable their entire fleet without firing a shot that would endanger Earth's civilian population, hidden beneath the surface of humanity's moon. Weapon systems that had been built in absolute secrecy prepared to reveal themselves to the galaxy. Particle beam arrays that could punch through ship hulls from 1,000,000 kilometers away. Gravitational manipulation devices that could crush enemy vessels like tin cans. Most terrifying of all, quantum disruptors that could simply erase matter from existence by disrupting the fundamental forces holding atoms together." War Commander Vostel watched Earth grow larger on his main display screen, completely unaware that his fleet was already targeted by weapons that could annihilate them instantly. His confidence remained unshaken even as reports of disasters throughout Dominion space reached his command center. "My lord," his tactical officer reported with growing alarm, "we've lost contact with over 60% of our forces. The humans appear to have capabilities far beyond our intelligence estimates." Voshtal's response revealed the fatal flaw in Dominion strategic thinking. Impossible. No species develops advanced military technology without displaying it. The humans have never demonstrated anything beyond basic defensive capabilities. These reports must be the result of communication failures or cowardice among our commanders. It was at that moment that humanity chose to educate the galaxy about the difference between inability and restraint. The demonstration began subtly. Warning shots from lunar installations bracketed the Dominion fleet with impossible precision, coming from directions that their sensors insisted were empty space. Energy beams that should have taken minutes to charge and fire instead pulsed in rapid succession. Each shot placed to disable specific ship systems without causing casualties. War Commander Voshtal, came a transmission from Earth's surface. This is President Maria Santos of the United Human Colonies. You have 30 seconds to order your fleet to power down weapons and prepare for inspection. This is your only warning. Voshtal's laugh echoed through his bridge as he processed what he interpreted as desperate bluffing. Human President, your primitive world cannot threaten the combined might of the Dominion Alliance. Surrender unconditionally, and we will consider allowing your species to survive as servants. The response came not in words, but in a demonstration of power that would be remembered throughout galactic history. Every ship in Voshtal's fleet simultaneously lost primary power as quantum disruptors selectively disabled their reactor cores. Weapons systems that had never failed suddenly locked into safe modes. Navigation computers began displaying error messages in languages they had never been programmed to recognize. Life support systems continued functioning normally, but every other ship's system simply stopped working. Impossible, Voshtal whispered as he stared at displays showing his flagship rendered as helpless as a drifting asteroid. War Commander, President Santos' voice returned. Now carrying the authority of absolute power, you are experiencing a controlled demonstration of humanity's defensive capabilities. Your crews are unharmed, but your ships are now under our complete control. You have two choices: surrender immediately and face trial for war crimes, or attempt continued resistance and discover what our offensive capabilities can accomplish. Throughout the galaxy, similar ultimatums were being delivered to Dominion forces as humanity revealed the true extent of their hidden preparations. The species that had been dismissed as weak explorers had actually become the most technologically advanced civilization in known space, choosing to hide their capabilities behind a facade of peaceful cooperation. Elder Althan, monitoring the conflict from Harmony Prime Station, felt his crystalline form pulse with patterns of recognition and ancient fear. His species' oldest records had finally yielded their secrets, revealing the truth about humanity's previous encounter with galactic aggression. The Krillian Empire hadn't simply been defeated by humanity for centuries ago. They had been systematically dismantled by a species that had demonstrated such overwhelming technological superiority that resistance became impossible. But rather than destroying their former enemies, humanity had helped rebuild Krillian civilization as peaceful allies, demonstrating the same restraint they were showing to the Dominion Alliance. Within hours, the conflict that the Dominion had expected to last months was effectively over. Their fleets floated helplessly throughout human space, their crews faced with the choice between surrender and annihilation by weapons they couldn't understand or counter. War Commander Voshtal found himself in the unprecedented position of commanding a battle fleet that couldn't battle, facing an enemy that had revealed capabilities beyond his species' wildest nightmares. "Human President," he transmitted, his voice carrying none of its previous arrogance. "The Dominion Alliance requests immediate ceasefire negotiations. President Santos's response would echo through galactic diplomatic channels for generations to come. War Commander. Humanity has always preferred negotiation to warfare. We tried to resolve this conflict peacefully for months. Since you chose violence over diplomacy, you will now accept our terms unconditionally or face the consequences of awakening a species that remembers exactly what we're capable of when restraint is no longer possible. The age of human restraint had ended, and the galaxy would never again make the mistake of confusing peaceful intentions with military weakness. The Council's warnings about humanity had been ignored, and now every species would learn why some civilizations choose diplomacy. Not from fear, but from terrible knowledge of what they become when diplomacy fails. Asterisk.